Gord met my family, and together we formed the Gord Downey and Cheney Winjack Fund. Together we are sharing Secret Path and other reconciliation resources with legacy schools, setting up legacy spaces across Canada, and hosting events like Secret Path Week to inspire all Canadians to engage in reconciliation. Before he left us, Gord asked us all to do something.
You're gonna figure it out.
Will you join us? Together we can make Canada a better place.
Rogers TV, St. John's.
Focused on quality and convenience, there isn't much you won't find at Marie's Mini Mart. Home-style breads, sandwiches, plus a variety of artisan breads and delicious single-serve desserts available exclusively at our Frecker Drive location. Marie's Mini Mart, with 25 locations wherever you go, there we are.
Hello, I'm Karl Wells, and this is Point to Point. My guest today is Andy Wells, a man who has worn many hats during his lifetime. Most importantly, though, he was the mayor of the city of St. John's for 11 years and served on our St. John's City Council for a grand total of 31 years. And on a personal note, I will tell you that he is the first person to give me a job in television in 1972. And Andy,
and a good choice it was.
And here we are, 47 years later, back in a TV studio.
Well, you were 13.
Yeah, that's right. And you were 15.
I was a bit older, yeah, 15. Yeah.
I didn't know that you were born in Corner Brook.
Yes.
But I take it you didn't live there very long.
No, we moved. My father actually, the family started out in Grand Falls, and he moved to Corner Brook, and Mom was a penny in Corner Brook, 22 West Street. Yeah. So they married, and then we moved to Stephenville Crossing, and in '52 we moved to St. John's.
Now your full name is Andrew Hillier Wells.
Yes.
Where does the Hillier come from?
The Hillier comes from, I'm very proud to say that I have also a Salvation Army background. My father, they were so poor, my father's uncle took him in. He was a Hillier, Uncle Will Hillier. They were Salvation Army officers. Oh. So I was named after them. And of course, they were Salvation Army officers in the rural parts of Newfoundland out around Trinity Bay for 40 years. I mean, they lived a life of I suppose, poverty in the service of others, which is what basically the Salvation Army does. And I've never lost my love for and respect for the Salvation Army. And even though I'm not religious, I love the hymns.
Well, I can see why you'd be pleased to have that name.
Yes, oh yeah, no, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your mom and dad.
Well, they were people of that period. Rural people that moved to St. John's, a lot of people at that time, and of course it was an ongoing process. I suppose it still is, move from rural areas to more urban areas looking for opportunity, and I guess they decided Dad decided he wanted to try and make a go of it in St. John's, but it's just a better education, I guess. I mean, I'm going back now, 1951, 52, these decisions were made, and they were ordinary, decent folk. We were taught to respect other people, tell the truth, don't leave a mess. I mean, I can tell you about another Wells family that I knew quite well. I'm sitting across from the son right here, the same kind of people. Your father and mother were outstanding people in their, in their way.
I can tell you that.
Now, you had a color TV, though. That really bugged me.
We did have a color TV.
The biggest color TV in Newfoundland. It was great.
Yeah, I could never get the color to work right on it, but it was a color TV.
Riot, just huge.
Yeah. So I met you when I was about 10, and I guess technically you were probably still a teenager. But I saw you then as being a fairly happy-go-lucky, easygoing guy. Is that how you would describe yourself as a youth?
I guess so. But then, well, you were very entertaining. You were an outstanding, as I recall, a voice actor. I can remember A Christmas Story.
I did a lot of
And you did all the voices.
mimicking.
Yeah,
Yes.
you were absolutely brilliant. So.
I did a lot of mimicking when I was a kid.
Yeah, I
later.
was pretty
Yeah.
easy going. I mean, I was never much good at anything, but I kept trying.
Yeah. Now, I have known and do know a couple of people who went to high school with you. And they tell me that they remember you as being fairly outspoken in high school, especially in history class. Do you have any memories of that?
Well, I always had an interest in history, and I don't recall being exceptionally outspoken. I mean, we were in the middle class. In those days, there was a smart class, a middle class, and a stun class. That's how it worked. I'm not saying it was right or politically correct, but that's the way life was. And you knew your place in the hierarchy, and I was in the middle class.
Yeah.
And I got through and mucked my way through, and I got into some controversies, of course. I had opinions. I still have opinions, and I've never hesitated in expressing an opinion when the moment is right, and sometimes I do when the moment is definitely not right. But that's life.
You went to Munn, and I take it you did a history degree at Munn, did you? Or
I did a history degree, and then I took a year out. I took and I spent your brother and I spent some time in Ottawa, and then
I was going to ask you about that.
And then I came back and did my education degree.
Yeah, that was in 1967,
67.
Canada's centennial year. And they had something called the Confederation Caravans,
Yes.
which you worked on. Well, why don't you just explain to folks what that was about?
Well, this was an attempt by the federal government to educate Canadians about Canada's history on the occasion of its 100th birthday. Current Trudeau didn't understand that it was the 100th birthday, which I found kind of amusing. But anyway, they put together these, I think there was a total of 6, and they spread them across the country. There was one in Newfoundland, one in the Maritimes, and I think Len went on to one in Ontario. I did Saskatchewan, Manitoba and Saskatchewan. So I spent 2 months aboard there, and it was basically a mobile, visual history of telling the story of Canada. And it was quite an experience. It was really interesting. Well paid to a government, you know.
Did you learn anything on it?
I was...
Or did you already know?
Well, you can always learn more.
That's right.
Always learn more.
Yeah.
And it was a great experience. Great experience.
So did you have to wear a uniform?
Oh, yeah, you had a...
Trying to picture what
you had a red blazer, a wine blazer, and gray flannels, and you had to wear a shirt and tie. It was, and you had to wear a beret. It was kind of fun.
A beret?
Yeah, we wore berets.
And I guess there was a maple leaf in there somewhere, was there? Or?
Absolutely, a maple leaf on your jacket. Yeah. Quite a yeah.
So then you went back to university.
Went back to Munn, and I did an education degree. And while I was there, I applied for a job at the university was establishing education television then, so I applied for a job there as a student, training television technology at the time, and then I got offered a job as a production assistant, so I went to work full-time in ETV.
Right. Now, just explain to the folks what ETV was, because it doesn't exist anymore.
No, it's been gone for, it was an educational television center, and we developed working with professors televised programs because the university was moving into remote communications, and so we used to package these programs, history and geology and psychology, and they'd be sent out around the island to various locations, and we did a lot of work within the university with professors who wanted to put their courses on video. So it was a kind of an interesting experience.
So it was during that time that I became aware of your activities with the NDP party, because you ran for a provincial election as an NDP candidate, and I canvassed door to door for you.
Right in 75?
I did, yeah.
I ran in 71.
I remember having more than a few doors slammed in my face.
I ran in 71.
On Merry Meeting Road.
Yeah, I ran in 71 out in Port aux Basques. That was a riot. I mean, that was really funny. And in 75, I ran in the old St. John's North District. I got 20%.
Yeah.
You know,
that's not
bad. I had a few doors slammed in my face. But,
yeah.
You know.
A little bit of trivia I uncovered. Is it true that your name is on the Boyle Trophy?
Yes. I was never any good at hockey, okay?
Yeah. But you're on the Boyle Trophy.
Well,
My gosh, that's...
I can lie about it, but I won't. I always tried out for the hockey team in school because I loved hockey, but I was never any good. Couldn't make the bloody team. But I never, it never scared me too much, obviously. Well, I wouldn't say obviously, but it didn't. But I kept at it. So when I started to work, they revived the old senior league, and I tried out for the Guards one year. I think it was 1974. And of course, by that time, a lot of the hockey players, the guys who were really good, had fallen out of shape. So I was in tremendous shape, and I was I had the capacity to survive running back, skating back and forth the ice so I always ended up first, even though I was probably the worst skater. So I made the team, and we won the Ball Trophy, and
You didn't do any damage.
No. And I got my name on the Boyle Trophy.
You got your name on the Boyle
It's really ironic in a sense because I was not a hockey player, although I loved the game.
Yeah. Let's talk about your involvement with the labor movement. You were involved for about 15 years.
Yes. Yeah.
In various capacities.
Yeah.
So what did you take from that experience in the end?
Well, I became very disillusioned with the labor movement, with the Canadian Union of Public Employees in particular. I was a local president, a regional vice president. I was a general vice president for Canada. I was a servicing rep. I organized, I think it was 2,600 workers around the province. I did certifications. I taught at labor school. I was an expert in it. I mean, I did my own arbitration cases, but the unions are, I know this is going to probably outrage some people who are watching, but unions are notoriously corrupt organizations. And as I moved up the hierarchy, I realized that certainly in the public, well, even in the private sector, unions they do a lot of damage to, I think, the social fabric. People are going to be outraged by that, but that's how I feel.
Let's talk about your entrepreneurial years. There was a period when you were getting involved in a few businesses.
Yes.
I know you had a bar on George Street.
Yes, unfortunately.
What was that experience like?
Well,
for
you think because you spent 25 years on the outside looking in, drinking, that you understand what it's like to run it on the inside looking out, and that's not the way it works. It's a very tough business, and I didn't last too long, and I paid for it.
Yeah.
You make mistakes. That's one of the ones where you are stubborn. You keep persisting when you should give up, and you just don't like to give up. Yeah. But anyway, it was.
So was it literally a case of you thinking, well, geez, this can't be too hard. I think I'll have a go at this. That was.
Say no more.
Yeah, people have gotten into the restaurant business like that too.
Listen, Karl, as you know. Yeah. Restaurants and bars, there's nothing tougher. Yeah. And I think that if you're going in this with your eyes wide open, I think you may need your head examined. I mean, I know people in the restaurant business and the bar business. I knew them, and there's nothing tougher, and they just don't survive. It's a very, very high risk, and you don't last.
Yeah, yeah.
But people still will persist, and you wish them well,
You were mayor, as I said at the top of the show, for 11 years. If you had to pick one or two things that you're really proud of, that you accomplished during your years in office, what would they be?
I suppose I don't like to brag. I mean, I suppose the harbour cleanup thing, which has really fell under the radar for a variety of reasons.
That's a biggie.
Yeah, we got a clean harbour there.
That's a biggie.
And I mean, I put that together. It's just a coincidence of factors and I was quite surprised when Paul Martin announced that there was money available under. I think he called it the Canada Infrastructure Program. But we were working at the time to get the Federation of Municipality Convention here in St. John's. So I was on the national board of the FCM, and that's the only reason I was there, because they were just a bunch of self-important pals. But I mean, you had to work the crowd to bring the thing here. Martin was running for the federal Liberal at the time. He came to St. John's, and I was doing my open line show, and I struck up a relationship with him, and so and then there was some things going on with Martin and Williams, so I was the back channel between Martin was always calling me, wanting to know what was going on with Williams and yada yada. I mean, people don't know this stuff, but it was a kind. Anyway, I developed a kind of a, and then one day it was announced that we had an infrastructure program, and the city of St. John's was going to get a clean harbour. But by the time we got it done, I was out of office, and O'Keefe got the plaque on the wall. Not that that bothers me. And of course, Harper was Prime Minister, so he wasn't interested in coming down to. For an opening of the official opening of the plant. I haven't even seen it. I haven't been over there.
Yeah,
but I can say that that was the situation where I was able to use the office to promote the public good, and it worked. So that was pretty good. The other thing I would probably mention, also unknown, with the oil industry, when the White Rose application was before the province. This approved the benefits. I took a strong stand at the time. The province was really upset with me because they thought I was going to, undermine the effort to get the thing approved. And it was approved. And after, I had a very high official with Husky tell me, we struck up a relationship. He said, Husky will never admit it. He said, they will never admit it. He said, but you frightened the crap out of them. And he said, you got a lot of business here in this city that they were not prepared to put on the table, but you did it. And he said, they know who you are. And of course, because I guess there were so many people here, they decided to build an office building. And I mean, I find what's happening today with the oil industry across the country, oil and gas industry, the attempts to close it down, shut it down by the Liberals and Tories, or Liberals and NDP, I mean, it's unconscionable. But I guess the point is that I got a lot of business here. We did establish an industry, so that was pretty good. And the only other thing I would mention is the raising the Tibetan flag. I got a kick out of that.
Well, I remember that. That was a big controversy.
Oh, that was great.
Although I could never figure out why people got so exercised, because, I mean, after all, you were standing up for downtrodden people.
Yes.
The people of Tibet.
Yes.
It was the Chinese premier was visiting at the time.
He was visiting.
Yeah, and instead of raising the Chinese flag, you decided to put up the Tibetan flag.
The Tibetan people came to me, and I said yes.
Yeah.
Well, he had Tobin there, who was a big bluff. I mean, everybody knows Tobin was strutting his stuff at the time. He got the premier of China coming here, and a few of the business elite who couldn't care less about human rights. So they were livid. And I mean, I can't tell you because we're in public what I told them to do when some of them phoned me up and tried to give me the gears, but you can imagine what I said to them. And we made our point, and I think after, I don't know, 8 or 10 hours, I hauled it down. And of course, the Chinese guy, the premier, came and landed. But I mean, at the time, it was a riot. I mean, somebody was over in getting on a plane in Hong Kong. Here I was on television, international incident. I had somebody from the Chinese community. They marched down to City Hall and stormed in my office and shook their finger at me and said, and I said, you can't do that to the mayor of Peking, but you can do it here. You can come in here and tell me off. But anyway, it was great. It was a great little blow for, didn't have any lasting consequences, of course, because shortly after they had Tiananmen Square, and now last week there was 2 million people in Hong Kong demonstrating.
Yeah.
You just do what you can.
Now, another thing which meant a lot to you, meant a lot to me, meant a lot to a lot of people, was you performed or participated at the first gay marriage, officiated, I guess, at the first gay marriage in 2005.
Yes.
And it was at a time when some very high-profile mayors in Newfoundland and Labrador refused to perform gay marriages.
Yes.
So hats off to you. And did you take any flack over that
Well, Karl,
at the time?
I can go back. I mean, I can go back. I've been going into bars in the city of St. John's since 1961. I had my first drink down in, I guess it's Carl Aaron's pub now at the age of 17. So, I mean, and I knew a lot of the gay community back I mean, friends with them all. I was never an issue with me. I couldn't care less. I was just so when the province passed the legislation and a couple of people phoned me up and said, will you marry us? I said, sure. At the time, of course, it was very controversial. And yes, some of these mayors who are one of them, I won't mention any names, but you know, went on to greater things, absolutely refused to have anything to do with it. So I presided at the first gay marriage, and of course you can imagine some of the emails and phone calls I got. I am still burning in hell, but you got to do what you think is right. And I've never, I mean, I don't want to sound too pompous, but I've never hesitated when I think something is right to do what is right. I mean, that's the way you do it.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. And I did a lot of gay marriages afterwards. Yeah. I mean, it was among other marriages. Yeah. You know.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, when you were on city council, when you were mayor, I guess, you know, you were known for being quite boisterous in the chamber. I'm searching for words here. But a lot of the debates, the heady debates, the shouting matches, ended up on As It Happens on CBC Radio, and it became kind of a semi-regular thing.
Oh yes.
On national, I guess it went national. I'm not sure.
It went national.
I wanted to ask you how you felt about that.
I thought it was a riot. I mean, I had a following around the island when I was mayor. I mean, I had people from, I used to run into them, because everybody comes to St. John sooner or later, and you'd run into people. I mean, my favorite story, this lady was from Rose Blanche. She said she saw me out at, I guess, the Price Club or somewhere, and she came rushing over and she said, I just want to tell you, Mayor Wells, that my husband, she said, he gets home Monday evening, 5 o'clock, with his half dozen, and he said he sits down and watches your council meeting.
Oh, right.
I said, ma'am, you got to work on him. But that was a common thing. It was watched around the island. Now, look, I don't suffer fools gladly, and I had a lot of pompous twits around me down there. That's as far as I'm going to go. And I mean, if I got something that annoys me, not always the best of timing sometimes.
But you never hesitated to call somebody a pompous twit to their face.
And it was,
or a buffoon, or a bluff.
Sure. I mean, it was, and a lot of times it was funny.
But do you ever regret having?
No, I mean, look what you got now. Look in the House of Assembly, for God's sake. The most boring, uninteresting. There's not a politician in there got a sense of humor. They're consumed by being politically correct. And all they're obsessed with is getting elected if they're not elected. If elected, staying elected. And whatever comes second or third is just incidental. I mean, to be in the House of Assembly, you got to be a sociopath, you got to be dumb, or some combination thereof. I mean, I wouldn't last an hour in there.
Well, I remember in the 70s, you could actually get politicians to come on Here and Now and answer questions.
Yes, yes.
Now they pivot.
Yes, they're looking around wondering which way am I going to fall.
Yeah.
They're like barometer, they're like a wind vane. You know which way is the wind blown? And you had them at City Hall. I mean, they're down there now. I mean, the whole, I'm not sour graping it, but the last election, I mean, the crowd that got elected they just knew which way the wind was going, and that's the way they fell. I mean, you know, that's taking this province down. But the people want it too, so, you know. I didn't win the election, somebody else did.
There's one thing I wanted to get in before we run out of time. Over the years, when I would mention your name to people, a lot of people actually, they would say to me, well, you know what? If I ever wanted to get something done, or if I ever had a problem, I would take it to Andy.
Yes.
And you, in fact, helped a lot of people with individual problems over the years. Yes. And you had something called your Happy Camper File.
Well, that's probably, actually, Karl, I think that's probably my best achievement, the thing I'm most proud of. I always felt that if you're going to get elected and you're going to stay elected, you got to look after the people that vote for you. So every single, well, it wasn't emails then, it became emails, but every telephone call, every contact, fax, letter, everything, we recorded it. We kept a record of it. We logged it in the date it came. I always answered, sent something out to know that you're in the system, and I always got back to people. And I accumulated over time. I called it my Happy Camper File, because if you were happy, even if you were procedurally happy, and I couldn't help you substantially, at least you knew I respected you. And so when we finally closed it out, when I left City Hall in March of April 2008, Betty Lewis, who was, you know, she and I were a great team. I said, how many names? She said, we got, I think it was close to 5,000 names in what was caught when I finally closed my Happy Camper Farm.
Wow.
And that's looking after people. And that's what you're supposed to do. I mean, I used to say to people, boy, looks like the old Canadian Tire. You got to come down. If I'm busy, take a number, but I will see you. And I mean, you could come down to see me, no appointment necessary. And as I say, if there was somebody else ahead of you, you had to wait. And I looked after people, and that's the way you're supposed to do it. Now, that's old-fashioned, but that's the way I operated. And I did help a lot of people. I mean, I ran into somebody the other day I haven't seen in 10 years, actually his son. And he told me, I mean, this was when I got elected first in 1977. His father had a problem with land, and he never forgot me. He's 92 now, and he still remembers me because I got that problem straightened out for him. And that's what you're supposed to do. But I mean, today, and even then, a lot of it was just manipulation and pandering to people. And I mean, the best way to show respect for people is tell them the truth and deal with them honestly. My parents taught me that. Your parents taught you that.
Yeah. I have to ask you about your health. How's your health these days? I know you had a heart problem, but I think you had a bout of cancer as well.
I had a heart operation 20 years ago that nearly killed me. Then I had a bypass surgery. I got terrible arthritis. I got tonsil cancer, which is unusual.
Really?
I was unfortunate in getting cancer, but fortunate in the cancer I got because it's very treatable. And I can say honestly that, and I still go back for checkups, but on a personal level, it was an experience. I mean, I was very lucky, but I'm over there with, you see, Karl, some terribly sick people.
Yeah.
You know, and people don't understand quite often with cancer, while you got a medical system that substantially pays, if you don't have the money, there's an awful lot of stuff. I mean, parking over there, if you don't have a car, getting in there, the stuff you gotta buy, and you see some terribly sick people. I only had radiation, but you got to go through chemo as well. And even now when I go over, you see some, and it reminds you that, well, first of all, that, life is pretty short. Yeah. And it reminds you that don't complain, because there's always some poor soul who's probably in a lot worse. So, you keep going. As Bette Davis said, old age ain't for
sissies.
Ain't for sissies. or de Gaulle, I think I sent you the quote. De Gaulle said, life is la vie est immonde. I study French too. La vie est immonde is c'est un naufrage. Life is a shipwreck, and you're going to hit the Titanic moment, but you keep going till you do.
Yeah. Well, let's stave it off as long as we can. Thanks.
That's what we do.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Great chatting with you.